Continue. Good morning once again for take two of the Pastards on this lovely Wednesday, the 25th of September.
Yes, it is.
This is what we call the fall reds orange edition of the Pastards.
Bruce gets a little uncomfortable when either of our shirts remotely match each other. I think it's such a resistance to
mom and dad
matching all the time.
Matching.
And so now it's like, we didn't plan this. This is clearly a Christmas kind of shirt. He's clearly got a fall shirt. We were not planning to look alike.
So let me tell you about my weekend. So took 6 people out into the Sierras and brought back 4. Big day, big time.
You know what? Join Bruce's.
It was a 4-day trip for 4 people. It was a 1-day trip for 2 people. So we had one of our ladies on the trip that got deathly ill. I mean, deathly ill, like even was throwing up at the trailhead. And I'm like, oh, that can't be good. And then by the time we got in camp, it's getting worse. And then the next morning, it's like, no, it's food poisoning. It's nothing going on there. So I walked her and her cousin out of the woods 3 miles back to the trailhead, put them in the van and sent them on to San Francisco to recoup. And then I walked 13 miles to meet the other guys who got in camp about 3 hours before I did. And I'm the guide. But I gave them a paper map. They had all trails. I'm like, nothing can go wrong. Or as soon as you say nothing can go wrong. Anyway, we had a great time. I had a fantastic time. Met some new people, a guy in California, Eric, just a great guy. And then a father-son from Corpus Christi, Texas.
All right.
They had a blast. And, they did some fishing out there at Toe Jam Lake and Y Meadow Lake. Everyone's just sunning and swimming, and it's lovely. Lovely. You've got to do the Sierras sometimes. But enough about me. How'd your weekend go, Raj?
Just be careful what you eat before you go to the Sierras.
Yeah, it was bad. I will not go into detail.
No, well, it's one of the things I think about, all the things you have to be prepared for, and what people may not know.
I've always got contingencies going on in my head.
Right. But in order to actually be a guide, and Bruce has to go through X amount of training.
Wilderness medicine.
First day, wilderness medicine. And that training is coming.
It's coming handy
several.
I actually now carry, because we're at high elevation, I actually carry a finger monitor. It's an oxygen monitor. Just so I can tell what level of oxygen they're taking.
Really?
So I was running like 98 up there, which is great. But if a person ever drops below 85, you've got to get them off the mountain. Because at that point, your body's not going to be functioning well if they're at 85% oxygen or less. So,
which, by the way, think about the technology. That is just taking someone. So there's a finger monitor.
Yeah.
That can assess your oxygen level. We were.
I also have a watch that I wear that monitors mine constantly. It's hilarious.
Your oxygen?
It'll monitor my oxygen. Is it just attached?
There's another technology thing now. All the things, the watches.
It shoots pictures for me. It gives me my pace, tells me my pulse, my heart rate. Do I need to go to the doctor? It has my little calendar on it.
Blood sugar is
low. My text messages, my emails, my little phone. It's hilarious.
You might want to check up on this relationship. It's going a little south.
Right, it's very, very good. It's completely AI. Call your mom. I think that's where AI struggles.
No, visiting our friends Mark and Wendy this last weekend.
Oh, that's right.
A couple of technology points. Well, one, you're talking about, I think watches, but Wendy was something like this. Okay, tells you when you went to sleep, how long it took to go to sleep, when you woke up.
My watch does the same thing. It'll tell you if you have sleep apnea, how many good hours of sleep.
Right, tracking.
That's hilarious.
Mark also had this other, he has his pizza oven, but he's got this little gun you can point into the oven and it will tell you what the temperature is.
Yeah.
So a little laser dot, whatever, goes in at some point.
Well, and I keep that on the trail. So in case people get COVID, because this young lady was running a fever at one point, but I literally have the thing you just point at their forehead and immediately gives their 10. But those things in the wilderness are very helpful because you're trying to assess, can this person go on? In other words, is it just exertion that's getting them, or is there something else?
Oh yeah, no. So any cue you have that this may not be,
This is
may
just
be
exertion.
advanced. Yeah, exactly.
This is COVID.
This is not necessarily just terribly out of shape. This is
Now, let me just get it out of the way real quick. But I was shocked because I didn't get to see any of the college football games or the Sunday NFL games.
okay.
But I saw that the Broncos beat Tampa Bay after Tampa Bay throttled another team. I'm like, this is going to be an interesting year.
Oh, it already hit.
Like the Jets won. I'm like, what the?
Oh, they're 2-1 now. They beat the
They're 2-1?
Patriots. Yes.
Oh,
They started off with a
loss
against a team that hasn't won since, the 49ers.
Now that blew my mind.
The 1 and 2 teams are, and a couple of 0 and 3 teams, including Cincinnati. But your Denver Broncos, my Patriots are 1 and 2.
And I don't feel
with,
like we're out of it.
along with, well, there's a lot. The Rams, the Ravens
yeah,
are 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Dallas Cowboys, 1 and 2.
It's hard to be a Cowboy fan. It just.
But all the things where
like Pittsburgh's what, 3-0?
Yeah.
Yeah. I did not see that coming.
No, what's funny is, and several of the 1 and 2 teams had a big opening day win. Maybe a convincing. I mean, Dallas, I think, had a huge.
Yeah, Miami had a big win.
Had a huge opening day. So yeah, no, it's been an interesting.
See how it plays out this year.
Right, 1 and 2. Yeah, I don't feel right now. Of course, Patriots are. I think it's clearly a rebuilding year.
Right.
But their defense is for real. As is, I think.
Yeah, Denver held them like 6 points.
Right.
Now, on the college football front, I have to say I'm pretty dang excited. So Tennessee had their first really big test. Oklahoma at Oklahoma, top 15 team, projected to be in the playoffs. Not anymore.
That projection was altered by the Tennessee Volunteers.
Yeah, they held them to 15, which is great. I didn't get to see the game. I noticed you and Little Roger were going back and forth on some conservative offense stuff, and I have no idea what's going on there. But either way, I'll take it. 25-15. I would take 27-24.
No, they were going to the fourth quarter. They'd held Oklahoma to 3 points.
Really?
Yes. Oh no, the two
did a trick play get them?
No. What got them was very interesting is going to the fourth quarter, Oklahoma changed quarterbacks to a freshman with a lot of speed, whatever.
So the defense had to totally adjust their game plan fourth quarter, and it sounds like they struggled a little.
Right, because now you had to think more.
You got a running quarterback.
Yeah. That defense had been so aggressive and going after, and you had a guy, you didn't have to worry about him getting outside the pocket. You had to.
This guy.
So the good news for the Vols is it gave him a new test.
Yep.
And you learned some discipline things and whatever. But oh yeah, the 2 touchdowns that they scored were in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
Well, and to that point, they had gone like 23 quarters without allowing.
Mm-hmm. No, they're
touchdown.
Their defense is big time for real.
So yes.
Go Vols.
You'll enjoy watching them this year.
Enough about the Vols. So, hey, did you enjoy time with Mark and Wendy?
Oh, that was a blast. Yeah, just the reminder about, the value of Sabbath with friends.
Yep.
Of course, they've got a great spot in the Smokies, and, this little cabin is, just a beautiful area, little spaces that, like Mark's Pizza Oven, but the front porch, and these little spots, so many just good conversations around that house at different points, just talking about life and having fun. End up watching the Vols game Saturday night. So just remind me, just a part of the joy of life that God intended us to have.
The joy of community. The
joy of community in God, in creation. There's something enhanced, both of those things, just beautiful parts of even how we experience God, nature and other people. It really very refreshing, just Yeah. And I love the reality of just, some light, just funny conversations. But then,
Oh, Mark makes me laugh.
yeah, very funny, but important things, and then how we're doing and what we're wrestling with. And of course, Wendy, coming off of her last cancer treatment
Yep.
for breast cancer and kind of just processing what they're learning. And very good time.
Good times all the way around.
Good times.
So, what's on your theological mind these days?
Well, I was actually this morning, I was pondering. So there's the fascinating, since we a couple of weeks ago talked about generosity.
Yeah.
I don't know if that one actually made it. If that
we did it a second time, and the second time it did go.
Okay. And so the Bible has all this to say about generosity and giving lavishly, but then there's this fascinating, almost startling word that I realize I've blown by as early in my life as I probably memorized 1 Corinthians 13.
Mm-hmm.
This word, if I sell all I possess and give to the poor, and give my body to be as the other, but I'm just thinking I sell everything I have. I think that qualifies as generous.
Yeah.
All my possessions. I give to the poor, which God dearly loves. In fact, I mean, if there's any priority around your giving that is highlighted in the page, it's giving to the poor. It's giving to the needy, the people. And gosh, there's just endless places for that to happen. He says, and have not love.
It profits me nothing.
And the startling thing is, why would it just assume, well, like you give everything you support? Of course, that's loving. What I started thinking about, and you, I'm sure, when it's possible for my giving, however generous it is, not to be motivated by love. And I guess the way that it helped me think is there are a lot of times when I'm giving, I'm actually giving to myself. I'm giving for a personal benefit. And maybe and we could unpack all the ways in which that can happen. I don't think it'd take you long to start thinking about, especially if the Holy Spirit is at work in your life, all the ways in which we can actually be giving to serve ourselves. And it's not about, so it's possible to give to the poor, and it's not about the poor, it's about Roger.
Yeah. Tell me how that is. Tell me what you're experiencing when you say that. Like you feel good, you feel benevolent, you feel noble.
Well, like Jesus highlights one, but Jesus highlights more than one. But here's a great, I mean, you're sounding the trumpets.
I shall now give to the poor. Hey, someone video this. We need to get this on social media. Okay, here we go.
Right. So and that's a classic rendering of the trumpets.
Yeah, that's a cultural rendering.
No, it's a great
for
cultural rendering, right? Yeah. We're turning it into a social media op.
Yeah.
And
optics, baby.
Right. And corporations and individuals know that looking generous and looking loving.
Sometimes we even make the check like 6 feet.
Which we do.
6 feet wide and 3 feet tall. And we hold it out there and we've all got our hands on it. Look what we're doing. We're giving a giant
and it's
check.
got the name of the company that's in large print on the. So another classic. Well, of course, the giving we're doing can be benefiting someone, but where God is actually saying, but it's not love. And if that's the core thing you're called to be and do, so that's one kind. So there's one kind of thing where I'm doing it to impress. Here's what I caught myself.
Sounding of the trumpets. Roger's about to tell on himself, so
I get to tell on myself.
Lean in, people.
No, I there was a situation I had last week with someone I've known for a long time, and um, I have done a lot of things for, there's, I could realizing that at some level I've tracked this in my mind. So we came to this situation where I was thinking in my mind, well, of course this person's going to respond this way. Well, they didn't.
They did not.
They did not. And what I caught myself was, wait a second.
I thought there was going to be some reciprocity there.
In other words, I did not even realize I'd attached some strings.
Yeah.
I did this, I did, and so even as I was tracking through my mind, this person did not do what I thought they ought to do for me.
Yeah.
And I started going back to, but you know what? I've done this, and I've done this for you, and I've done this, and I've done this. In the words of Jesus,
and if you have not love.
Well, I think the words of Jesus where he says, have a banquet for people who can't
repay
you. And there's this thing where,
but you said it, what good is it if you love those that love you?
Right.
What good is it if you greet those that greet you? What is it if you help those who help you? Don't even the pagans do that?
Right.
Just a transactional relationship.
Exactly.
You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. We're good to go. But Jesus flips it and says, no, do things for people that can't possibly help you.
So I think about how much giving is, there's an expectation of return.
Okay. And Jesus, in one of his places where he's even talking about in relation to enemies, he said, lend without expecting repayment. I'm sorry, this is the United States of America. We don't lend without expecting repayment. But Jesus is like, no, lend. If they can get it back, great.
Right.
But that's another form of even generosity.
Right. And it's another form of
non-transactional giving.
Right. Where I am not, in some ways where when I'm giving with strings attached, part of the motivation is I'm going to get something back.
And you acknowledge something that is interesting. I don't think in the process of the giving, I think you weren't consciously adding strings to it. It was at a subconscious level. These things are sort of building up. I've been giving. Awesome.
Yes.
Hey, I need a little something. Can you help me with? No? Okay.
Yeah. Then when it didn't happen,
right.
Well, there's where I had to check, and where God brought me. You brought up an interesting angle here is all those things. Well, what God brought up was.
Let's talk about that.
Well, what he brought up is, you have kind of an imbalanced ledger. Then what he brought up is, do you remember what this person has done for you here and here and here? And it's like, I had forgotten that. I wish you hadn't brought that up.
And going back to 1 Corinthians 13, love keeps no record of wrongs, but maybe love does keep a record of rights. Where this person's, so we're grateful, so that we appreciate.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be great? Hey, I appreciate it. Maybe we should just have a thankful ledger.
No, right. Whenever I start in any relationship, marriage, but any friendship, any kind of relationship, where there's some kind of tracking of what we're doing for each other, I realize how much I weight the things that I do.
Yeah.
How easily I remember. I can fill out my ledger real quickly. And what's that? This ledger will be slow. But if I stick with it, and the Holy Spirit will challenge me to do this, so I start, then there's that. What? Wow. And that ledger is.
Yeah.
But if I'm not thinking about it, the unthought through ledger of mine is always leaning into, I'm without realizing I'm tracking all the good I'm doing. I have to work to track all the good the other person is doing. But without even trying, I'm tracking.
Roger, I realize on my spreadsheet, because I told you I don't track giving anymore, I probably should track gifts too, because we forget those. We appreciate it in the moment, but then it's the story of the whole Bible.
Yes.
God does this amazing thing, and the people worship a golden calf a week later. It's just like we forget so quickly the goodness of God, the graciousness of God, the generosity of God. And I'm just like, man, maybe I do need to add some things to my ledger.
Good point.
Like I had a guy on this trip, because I don't expect that, who tipped me $100 afterwards.
Ah,
Like, isn't that awesome?
that is. I love that.
I actually love that too.
Right.
But I need to put that on the ledger, because it's like, I want to be, and you're just making me think, I want to be a person who appreciates,
Yes.
not who keeps a ledger of what I've given and sort of have a subconscious transactional reciprocity.
And the ledger of the other person isn't. We don't want it to get to, I've got to match that.
Oh gosh, no.
Or I've got to, but
yes.
But the healthy part of it is tracking that, because I will not naturally,
No.
you might, listeners, you may be, but I do not naturally track
Yeah.
the good others are doing. I reflexively track
Right.
the
good that I've done.
generous, beautiful, wonderful things that I'm doing.
But what a great way to live. Where I think it's knowing the goodness of God in the land of the living. It's this whole idea that God is manifesting himself through other people all the time. Through small gifts, large gifts, that word of encouragement, all those things are gifts from other people. And I'm like, man, I want to be more aware of that.
So another thing that hit me about giving that may not be loving.
Okay.
Since, oh, hope the hammer's not falling down on me. Well, John Foreman in his song Somebody's Baby Girl did this haunting story about a homeless gal who reminds me of friends of mine. Says, when people don't want you, they just throw you money for beer. And there is for all the calls of Jesus to walk with people in need, giving can be a way of keeping my distance. Giving is easier. Writing a check is easier than getting in the messy weeds. And I have had the moments where someone's come to me, whatever, and I just don't want to deal with it. I don't want to. Super easy.
Yeah.
For make that person go away with $10. Oh, I can do it. No, right. And if I think that it's possible, it's just being aware that giving can be an excuse not to give them my life, my time. Sending money, a quick PayPal, or I mean, whatever or can be far easier than driving over to check in and be with this person, or to do this, and so then actually the gift could be loving myself. It's this thing where actually I'm really protecting myself here, and I'm willing to. So that's a subtle kind of thing, and you got to track the spirit, lead with that. But I've definitely had the moments where, yeah, it was like, I'm willing to pay this to get this situation
Resolved
out of my. And again, I'm not saying,
and I've done that before.
Like, I send money to help people in Honduras, good friend of ours who's been ministering there for years. And I love that. And I love hearing the stories. I've never actually been there. And I'm not saying.
Are you going to go in February?
I have no idea.
He invited me to go.
He invited me to go.
Okay. Let's do it.
I'm thinking about it, but
let's go.
I'm not saying that if we don't go, okay, that's not real giving.
Oh, no.
But it's just sensitive, God. It's just actually pausing as I'm giving and saying, what's going on in my heart? Why am I giving this? What is this, so.
That's good. It's real good.
I think there was one other thing that I thought about.
How you give to yourself?
Right.
Or give without love.
Right. How I give without love.
I think I've given, I think I have given at times to resolve the situation. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for the story. I don't have time for attached to it. I would much rather just give you a $50 bill than know your story.
Right.
Because sometimes I'm in that irritable tension of, is the story even real? I mean, because I understand that some of our friends have learned to create a story that creates a sense of urgency, and I understand that it's a survival mechanism.
Right.
But then sometimes I'm like, I don't, I'm just trying to resolve the thing. Whereas I think Jesus would go, what is it you want? Like, what is it you really want?
Right. It's actually
Well, I'd like to not be homeless. All right, let's work on that.
right. The gift, sometimes the greatest gift people need is the be with.
Yeah.
Um, again, and money can just be easier. Money doesn't like time. What I know about myself is like I am almost always in a hurry, often for no logical reason.
Hey, you need to read the book I'm reading. Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Now, I have gotten better, and this is one of the places that I can actually see God at work, where I've learned to pause more. But I still, all the time, I've got something, because part of what I think is I'm always tracking days and day in terms of time. I have things that I'm looking to get accomplished in that day, and I take it. It's kind of a fun and a joy to, ooh, how much can I get done without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'm always like when I'm driving, just the fun of getting there in the fastest time. But I'm not. That's just tracking, and I'm not.
Roger applauded me the weekend before last because I would like wave truckers in front of me. Come on over. Just merge on over. You guys are real people too, and you need to be able to pass as well.
I have not reached that level of Christ likeness. I will. By the way, total random, which is
why people tune into the Pastards.
I encountered, I think, the first ever self-aware left-hand lane driver.
What does that look like?
What does that look like? I'm glad you asked. So I'm driving along, interstate. I'm in the left lane, and there's a car that's going less than the speed I'm going. And what I do when I come up behind that person is I usually give them a couple of seconds to kind of get a read on what
Sure.
Are they just the
camping?
Look at those mountains over there.
Roasting marshmallows.
Right here.
Got the tent set up. Got the big camp chair, a little sippy cup.
Exactly. So I usually get, a couple of seconds, and then I get the read.
A couple of seconds. It just sounds so funny. 1, 2. All right, you've had enough time.
It's not long. Well, this person, I got up there, and I'm not flashing lights. I don't do that kind of stuff, and the honking or anything. I don't do.
I've done that. I've flashed my lights before.
Years ago, yes, and then I realized, okay. Anyway, so I come. So then the person moves over, and I, just.
And do you ever wave at them? I do. I would just sometimes like, hey, thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah, well, often I look over because I just want to see.
Roger, I do the same thing. I want to see who it is. Who it is.
And I want to see if
you're a self-aware left laner. I just want to see who
God's
you are.
Going to blow away my stereotype, because I find myself I'm expecting I'll see a certain
we are such judges,
age, gender, whatever person. I mean, my brain goes those places without trying. God forgive me. So anyway, so I will often look just to see, okay, all right. So the person, pulls over, but I'm always grateful for that, and I fly on, and then look in the rearview mirror, and the person just goes right back over to that lane. Now there's no car. I mean, there's no.
But that's a lane they're comfortable in.
They're not passing anybody.
Yeah.
But they like that lane, but they were in tune with, in other words, but they're watching, they're keeping an eye. So when I came up, pulled over, but then pulled right back.
Now, sometimes I'll do that if the right lane's just a terrible lane, like because it gets so much truck traffic.
Oh, yes.
And it's just bumpy, I'll stay there, but I'm watching to see if someone's coming behind me.
Right.
This is something I learned. This is the thing about why it's so important not to judge from your vehicle. So Mom used to drive in the left lane. Melody explained why. Were you in on that conversation? My mom always drove in the left lane because Melody, hey mom, you don't need to be in the left lane.
Okay, no, yeah, I don't know that.
Mom liked to stay in the left lane because it made her nervous to change lanes to get over into the right lane. Now, my thought would be, well, then just stay in the right lane. But then she feels like she thought she may have to pass someone, then she has to change lanes. But it just gave me a new perspective on why some people might be in the left lane. They don't like navigating, changing lanes, and all that kind of stuff. I love smooth little just these boom, boom, on we go.
Well, what I love about that, and so many levels, is anything that breaks these kind of stereotypes. And for me, they're always negative. Why someone is doing something. The why, this is okay, this person's just
Clueless.
Yeah.
This person doesn't care about other people.
They don't
This
understand.
person's rude.
Right. But to realize, and it always helps when it's a family member, right? Or there's someone that's
Yeah.
like, oh, there might be another story. There might be a
Well, and it's the whole thing of, I mean, we're going down that rabbit hole further than I thought, but it's the whole idea of how quick we are to judge motives before we even know that person's story, before we know anything about that person. And of course, when you're driving a car and they're driving a car, you know nothing about them other than they might be an Auburn fan because of what's on the back window, or they might
or
be
a bumper
hippie
sticker,
because
some kind,
multiple
yeah,
bumper stickers.
a political leaning.
Right, you get a little feel for them on that front.
Right.
If I see a white Buick from Indiana, I'm just like, this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a big problem. I need to get around this as fast as I can.
Right. Or that Lincoln Continental with the Florida plate.
Ooh, also problematic. Not good. No, yeah. So some of my confessions to God recently have been about judgments, just internal judgments I'm making, and it's beautiful that God continues to convict me not only about my words and about my actions, but about my thoughts. Jesus was always about the thoughts and the intents of the heart. He talked about the Pharisees would talk about eating with unwashed hands, and they were horrified by it. The disciples apparently just digging in, baby. They're just eating like crazy, and they're like they wash their hands. And he said, "Well, nothing goes into your body through your mouth is going to defile you." He said, "What comes out of your heart is the problem." Because that's where murder, adultery, lasciviousness, theft, all of that comes from the inside and makes a man unclean. And I'm like, that was very convicting to me. I'm like, what's going on in the inside? Because eventually it reflects itself on the outside. For instance, if I've made a judgment about a person in the left lane that's just being rude, they're just being rude, then I might fly past them on the right side and then zip right in front of them so that they know I was not happy with their loin chase. Loin chase? Their lane choice.
I don't often think about the loins of people. I guess, but to each his own.
You're just a loin chaser over there in the left lane. Lane choice.
No, literally.
Oh, my face is red.
I literally did that a day ago, I think. I went around and then kind of
I've been more intentional about when I'm passing on the right. I try to get well ahead and slowly move over so that no one feels like I'm offended.
Right.
And I'm getting better, Rod.
Right.
About
no, if it's the thing on the judgments, the sobering thing for me, and it's just a reminder of the wisdom of God, and it's why another part of the Bible story rings true for me. Call it what you will, sin, nature, whatever. There's this idea that when things went south, there's this part of us that leans toward the wrong thing. Where I see this in me all the time is we're all detectives. We're made that way. So a thing happens, we try and discern, why did that thing happen? Why did that person do that? There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's actually figuring out
normal.
It's normal. The broken part is I realized my first inclination for the reason why they did that is almost always a negative one. Why was this person late? Why did they pull in that lane? Why did they give that money? I mean, why all these different things? I realize how often my first thought is a negative. The first thought, and I realize see, the opposite could be true. The very first thought I have with why someone is parking in the left lane, my very first thought could be something very noble and good. My first thought is almost always a negative, but this is across all kinds of areas. So God has had to work at me. The idea of believing the best story. 1 Corinthians 13, love believes the
Believe
best.
the best. Man, that's, and you could
You
spend
have
the whole podcast right there
Work.
to believe the best.
Right. It even comes back to that thing where my ledger,
Yeah.
like, and here's the funny thing. I virtually always have the very best possible reason for why I did a thing.
Right.
I put this in the very best possible light. So if I'm late for something, well, there's a good reason. There was
This is the thing.
but if someone else is late, my first thought about why they're late might have to do with irresponsibility or not thinking about others, or not disciplined, or why?
Or just plain rude.
Or rude, right? Or
Yeah, I'm probably slightly better than you on those fronts. Just the way that, because I loved a talk that Andy Sandler did years ago, and it talks about whenever there's a gap in communication about something, human nature fills in the gap with the worst possible
right.
thing. So it's why it's important to communicate clearly. But I saw a great comedian last week, and it just made me laugh. And he's on a stage, he's in a theater with these people, and you see him standing up there, and he says, "You people that are late have no idea how much we people that are on time hate you." Because it's so easy to be early. I mean, you've got hours and hours and hours that you can be early. I mean, you can be as early as you want, but it only takes 1 second and you're on time. After that, you're late.
You're late.
And about that time, this couple walks in and they're getting seats. He goes, "Hey, we were just talking about you. Welcome to the show." I just thought that was so clever because it was off the cuff. "Hey, we were just talking about you." But I don't hate late people. I'm just like, what I don't do is wait to start things for the late person to get there. So if there's a meeting, I'm going to be sensitive to the people who are there on time and just kick the thing off, and then the ones that can get there. That's fine.
No, and this is where the way of Jesus has shifted me. Is
Well, that's good to know.
Oh yes, I am much better about thinking about the best possible, but it's still work. This is the part that
Yeah, it still works.
Like coming up with the worst story. I don't even have to think about that. That will come up reflexively. Now, the beautiful thing about God legitimately starting to work in your spirit is where God is training me almost always now. I mean, very often there's the counter voice. Let's see, you see what you're doing, Raj? Do you see what you just,
yeah.
And then it's like, I did that again. But it's just striking to me. I think even when the Apostle Paul talks, the things I want to do, I don't do. The things I don't want to do, I find myself doing. It's this reality that there is this part deep inside us that is still seeing the dark side, is still seeing the darkest motive, and the Spirit of God helps us fight that.
This is good. This is a good finishing ditty.
Oh my goodness, you have now.
When experiencing the test, always think the best.
Then you'll be better than the rest.
Because often at first, you think the worst.
And you will be blessed.
That was kind of a limerick. That was 2 rhymes, different rhyme in the middle, finished with the first rhyme.
We've never limericked before.
We just limericked. That was so, I can't repeat what we limericked, but we did, and it was very, very good.
I think it's also the first time we used the word loin in a podcast. So yeah,
that was a mistake
loin.
On the loin chasing. That was a
don't be loin chasing this week.
Fubar.
That's your word from the pastor.
Yeah. With that, we'll leave you to think the best of us.
Devices.
Because you could be thinking the worst right now. And we want you.
We're really wonderful people.
Not to. Oh.